It's the International Soccer Preview, and we are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 28, looking at the groups and teams of the 2024 Copa America. This episode is looking at the players of Bolivia. Here we go! Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin, and this is Series 28 on the players of the 2024 Copa America. This episode covers Bolivia's players. We're doing this mediacast in two parts. Part one here is a look at the candidates for the squad and their likelihood of making it. We examine the participation in of players in games over the recent period, as well as a couple of other factors, and categorize them into definite, likely, possible, and so on. We'll also introduce the main players to you. In part two, that'll come out when we know what the final squads are. I kind of lost my sentencing there. When the squad lists are released and the final squad is selected is what I'm trying to spit out. At that time, we'll go back over the list that we create here and see who made it and who didn't. And we'll also cover things like injuries and surprise selections. So this episode will have three sections. Section one, we're going to look at some general information on the team. In section two, we cover the main candidates in each position and their likelihood of making the squad. And in section three, we're going to summarize and conclude. We'll run through the list of players to see if we can identify the starters. Okay, let's begin and move on to section one. We're going to begin with retirements. Last tournament they played in Bolivia was in the 2021 Copa America. Since then, we have the retirement of one of their biggest names, Marcelo Martins, or Marcelo Moreno. He goes by both names. He goes by Marcelo Martins, by the way, when representing Bolivia. And he has been a very important player for them. Actually was part of the squad during this period for most of it. But at the end of 2023, announced his retirement. So that's a big miss for Bolivia. We also have Juan Carlos Arce, or Arce, 88 caps for the national team, and he last appeared in February of 2022, so not too long after the Copa America in 2021 there. So not as big a miss as Moreno Martins, because he had been off the team for long. Let's take a look at Bolivia's club affiliations, and really not that much to speak about here. Most of the players play in Bolivia. If they do play outside of Bolivia, it tends to be one of the bigger leagues in the area, Brazil, or I guess we don't have any for Argentina, but that's probably where they would go. We have a few players with Santos underage team in Brazil, as well as Miguel Terceros with Santos senior team. So a lot of these actually players playing outside of Bolivia are younger players, so that's promising for the future. We also have a couple in Europe, but for teams that are not that well known. So Baltica Kaliningrad is where Roberto Fernandez plays, that's in Russia, and Iverden Sport in Switzerland for Boris Cespedes. But they only have a handful of players there, and one in the USA for Philadelphia Union. That's a young player without too much experience with the team. So again, some of these we may see come up in future years, but you know, compared to the teams they're facing here, pretty weak in terms of club affiliations. Let's go to recent games. So we're examining the participation of players from the start of 2023. Bolivia played 13 games over that period, and we're going to go through them. Basically, there were 5 friendlies from March to August 2023. No kind of key games there. And then we had 6 World Cup qualifiers from September to November 2023. After 4 of those, they changed their manager. They lost the first 4 games there, as we'll see when we get to section 2. And so for the last 2 of those games and 2 friendlies in March of 2024, it's under a new manager. In terms of international tournaments, Bolivia gets automatic qualification for the Copa America, so they participated in all of those. They haven't reached a World Cup in recent history, so but there were Copa Americas in 2015, 2016, and then in 2019 and 2021. So we can look back to those tournaments to look at the players' experience. Okay, moving on to formations. Really not much to say here. It kind of represents the kind of chaos that we see on the squad. Under the previous manager, there were 9 games. He used a 3-5-2 formation in 3 of them and a 5-3-2 formation in 3 of them, and then single formations in 3 of them. We're going to see that kind of as a pattern of the team, just a constant experimentation there. Under the new manager, we have 3 different formations over his 4 games. It was a 4-man backline for the first 2. And then at least the same formation for the last 2 games in March. That was a 3-2-2-2-1 formation for the last 2 games. But we're not sure if that's what they're going to go forward with. We'll have to look at the warm-up games to maybe get a better impression, because we only have 4 games under the new manager there. So we can't even determine, under the old manager, it generally was a 3-man backline. Just one of his 9 games had a 4-man backline, but under the new manager, it's 2 of each. So we're not really sure which he's going to go with overall. Okay, we finish this section with a look at their upcoming games. So they actually have 3 games that they'll be using for warm-ups and that we'll be using to examine their lineup. The first one is on May 31st. All of these games, by the way, are played in the USA, where the Copa America will be hosted. So the first one on May 31st will be Bolivia against Mexico. And then almost 2 weeks later, on June 12th, they will be playing Colombia, and then 3 days after that playing Ecuador. So again, we'll be interested particularly in the lineups and formations there. Okay, that is the end of section 1. Let's move on to section 2, our main business of looking at the candidates, and we begin with the manager. The manager is Antonio Carlos Zago, a Brazilian manager. And he has no experience at the tournament level as a manager, but was with a lot of clubs before that. So he's been in since November 2023, actually at the very end of October there. Prior to that, he was manager of Coritiba in Brazil, but he did manage Bolivar in Bolivia. Other countries he's been in, it's mostly been Brazil, actually, but he did have a stint in Japan with Kashima Antlers from 2020 to 2021, and an assistant manager at Shakhtar Donetsk in the Ukraine. Otherwise, all Brazilian clubs there. And he was also a player for Brazil from 1991 to 2001 with the national team, 37 caps and 3 goals. And he participated in 2 Copa Americas during that time in 1993 and 1999. So that is Antonio Carlos Zago, the current manager. Let us go to a summary of the position. This is where we take the opportunity to talk about the kind of recent history of managers. So let's go back to 2019, where we have Cesar Farias as the manager from 2019 to 2022. He led them through the 2021 Copa America and actually survived their last place finish in the 5-team group stage of that tournament, the top 4 passing, so only Bolivia not passing from that group. Nevertheless, he stayed on despite losing all games there. And they finished 9th of 10th in 2022 World Cup qualifying under him. That cost him his job. An interim manager took over until Gustavo Costas, an Argentinian manager, took over in August of 2022. So he was with them for a little more than a year. Gustavo Costas began World Cup 2026 qualifying with Bolivia. However, after losing their first 4 games in September and October 2023, he was sacked. And before the month was out, Zago took over and they played the November games under him, the World Cup qualifiers, and then 2 friendlies in March 2024. So just 4 games under the new manager, Zago here. It will be Antonio Carlos Zago then leading them through the tournament. Let's go to goalkeepers, and we begin by just listing the candidates and their likelihood. We have a definite candidate in Guillermo Vizcarra, and then down to possible level is Carlos Lamp and Bruno Poveda, and then possible but unlikely Ruben Cordano. Okay, let's go to the, let's look at these candidates. Guillermo Vizcarra, the definite candidate, is 31 years old and has 19 caps with Bolivia since 2016. Actually, a little difficult for him to get games with Carlos Lamp in the top position for quite a while. But Vizcarra has been around. He is with the strongest, one of the biggest clubs in Bolivia since 2021, and he was on the Copa America 2016 squad, but didn't see any action in that tournament. Not selected for any tournaments after that, though. The 2019 and 2021 Copa America, but since the beginning of 2023, Vizcarra has started 11 of their 13 games and was on the bench for 2 others. So kind of finally getting his chance, Guillermo Vizcarra. The person preventing him from getting a lot of game time was our possible candidate, Carlos Lamp, captain of the team. At some points. Carlos Lamp is 37 years old with 53 caps for Bolivia since 2010, and he's currently back in his 3rd stint with Bolivar in Bolivia, but has played in Argentina for several teams, including a loan spell to Boca Juniors, one of the biggest clubs in Argentina there. So Carlos Lamp, not selected for a Copa America until 2016, the Centenario edition, where he was both the captain and the starter. And he continued on to start in both the 2019 and 2021. Actually, in 2021, he wasn't the starting keeper in game one, but he gained the position from game 2 onwards. Ruben Cordano, who is off the team now, was the starter ahead of him there. And he hasn't been the starter recently. Carlos Lamp started just 2 of their 13 games since the start of 2023. He was on the bench for 8 and not even selected for 3 matches, including the last 2 matches. So we'll have to look to the June games to see if he is making his way off the squad there. Next, we have Bruno Poveda. He's just 21 years old and has no caps for the national team. He plays for Wilstermann in Bolivia. He got his first appearance on the bench in June 2023, Bruno Poveda. Didn't start any of the games, but was on the bench for 5. That includes the first 3 matches and then the last 2. So effectively replacing Lamp there at the end. But there were 6 matches that he was not selected for. Those were all of the 6 World Cup qualifying matches. So Bruno Poveda, just a possible candidate here. Next, we do have Ruben Cordano. I was wondering if I had made a mistake there. But Ruben Cordano here, the starter in the 2021 Copa America, who lost his starting position after a poor performance in game 1. is now just a possible but unlikely candidate. He's 26 years old, 5 caps for the national team since 2019, and he plays for Orient Petrolero in Bolivia. His whole career has been in Bolivia. He was a backup keeper for the 2019 Copa America, and as we saw, initially the starter in 2021. Recently, though, he hasn't started any of their games since the start of 2023. He was just on the bench for 2 matches and not selected for 11 others, including the last 2 matches. So Ruben Cordano, just a possible but unlikely candidate here. They seem to be a little short of goalkeepers here, so we actually had 2 players we weren't going to introduce, but I'm going to bring one of them in just because there's a chance they might call them back if they are short of goalkeepers. So Braulio Urezana is seemingly off the squad. He returned after a 9-year absence, holy smokes, in August of 2023, and didn't start any of the remaining 9 games, but he was on the bench for the first 5 and then not selected for the last 4 matches. So I suppose given the lack of candidates here, especially with so many missing the last 2 games, Braulio Urezana has a chance of being called back into the squad. I also wonder if they will call in a new goalkeeper if they don't bring back someone. Let's summarize the position, though. It was Lamp and Vizcarra kind of sharing the position in the first half of 2023 under the previous manager. But however, from the beginning of World Cup qualifying games, Vizcarra played all the games. So 4 of those under the previous manager, and then the November games under the new manager. He also started the 2 friendlies in March 2024. So he looks like he has really gotten the grip on the starting position here. Guillermo Vizcarra, and let's move on to defenders and central defense. We begin by listing candidates and begin with Luis Higuain, now captain of the team and a definite candidate. We have Jose Sagredo, also a definite candidate. Keeping in mind that they use generally a 3-man backline, and I should have said that at the beginning. Maybe I'll just jump to that now and summarize the position. So usually a 3-man central defense under the old manager. Under the new manager, we saw the first 2 games were a 2-man central defense, and the March friendlies a 3-man central defense. So it'll be interesting to see which way the new manager goes. But basically, we have a lot of candidates here because we're often filling 3 positions. So let's go back to the list. So Luis Higuain and Jose Sagredo, both definite candidates. Adrian Jusino, the first of 3 likely candidates. Jairo Quinteros, also likely, and Marcelo Suarez, also likely. And again, here we have 3 candidates seemingly off the squad. We'll just introduce one of them, though, Luis Barbosa. Let me see. He last appeared in the 2021 Copa America. He was on the squad for that tournament, but hasn't appeared since. So he's as close as we come, really, to a backup candidate here. And let's go over the candidates who seem more likely. We begin with Luis Higuain, the captain of the team. He's 26 years old. That's quite young to be a captain, and has been with Bolivia since 2017 with 33 caps and 1 goal. And he's one of the players playing outside of Bolivia with Deportivo Cali in Colombia since 2023, and actually on loan to a Brazil team, Ponte Preta, since 2024. Luis Higuain was a starter in the 2019 Copa America, just a substitute, though, in the Copa America 2024. He got a positive COVID test in that tournament. So yes, probably would have been a starter. He came back and started game four after being ruled out for the first three games there. Uh, since the beginning of 2023, Lewis Hagwin has started six of their 13 games, subbed in for one and on the bench for one, and not selected for five matches. But those were the first five matches of 2023, so friendlies under the new manager. And since the beginning of World Cup qualification, he has been quite consistently selected. Um, Jose Sagredo is the second definite candidate. He's 30 years old with 50 caps and one goal since 2017. He's in Bolivia, has been his whole career, and not selected for the 2019 Copa America, but a starter in Copa America 2021, at least for the first game. He lost his position after that. Since the beginning of 2023, though, Jose Sagredo has started eight of their 13 games, subbing in for two and on the bench for one. So three matches that he was not selected for. Jose Sagredo, a definite candidate here. Actually, given that they only have five candidates here, and teams usually bring five or six, probably all of these candidates will be selected. Adrian Josino, the first of our likely candidates, is 31 years old, and he has 35 caps for the national team, no goals since 2019. He's also playing for the strongest in Bolivia since 2021, but he has had stints in Greece and the USA as well. In fact, Adrian Jusino was born in the USA. Um, he was selected for the 2019 and 2021 Copa Americas, a starter in both of those. And since the beginning of 2023, Jusino has started eight of their 13 games on the bench for one and not selected for four. So I don't know why we don't have him as a definite candidate, because his profile seems similar to those above, but we'll just leave him where he is for now. Jairo Quinteros is our second likely candidate here. He's younger, 23 years old, with 22 caps and no goals since 2021. He's with Bolivar in Bolivia, but did play in other countries too. Zaragoza in Spain and Inter Miami in the USA. He was with the Valencia Youth Club in Spain there. And he was selected for the 2021 Copa America, Jairo Quinteros, and he was a starter in that tournament. Since the beginning of 2023, Quinteros has started seven of their 13 games. He was on the bench for two, but not selected for four matches, including the last two. So Jairo Quinteros, a likely candidate. In fact, he played as a right back in the November World Cup qualifying games under the new manager, and then was not selected for the last two. So that's a bit strange, but I do think he will come back. We'll see in the warm-up games if he does. Finally, the last of the likely candidates, Marcelo Suarez, just 22 years old with six caps since 2023. He plays in Bolivia and got his first game in March of 2022. Was just on the bench for a while, but since the beginning of 2023 has started five of their 13 games, subbed in for two and on the bench for three, and he was not selected for three matches. So all of these players looking quite likely. And let's summarize the position here. We're going to see a lot of this. Seven different players were used in the friendlies in the first half of 2023, with none of them playing all of the games. So under the previous manager there, in the first half of 2023, we saw Jusino starting four of the games and Quinteros and Suarez starting three each. Lewis Hagwin was not being selected at that time. Those three started World Cup qualifying, Jusino, Quinteros, and Suarez, but just four games later, in the last game for manager Gustavo Costas, it was three completely new players. It was Hagwin, Cuellar, and Jose Sagredo. So Cuellar we're going to meet a little bit later. Higuain and Jose Sagredo became the pairing under the new manager. Jusino joined them in the March friendly when it became a three-man central defence. Only Higuain was used, though, in the second March game. Suarez coming back into the picture. Marcelo Suarez paired with him there in the last game. Okay, so yes, lots of changes there, and we're going to see it even more in the midfield. Let's move on to the left back position. This would be just one position, and actually about half of the time it pushes up into a left winger role in something like a 3-5-2 formation. Let's look at the candidates. We have a definite candidate in Roberto Fernandez. And I'm on left backs here. And that's it. We go all the way down to possible but unlikely with Jesus Sagredo and Carlos Roca. I'm sorry, both of those just possible but unlikely candidates. And I should have mentioned that Jose Sagredo is coded as a left back, but actually we moved him to central defence because that's where he's been playing more in this period. Let's look at our definite candidate, Roberto Fernandez. He is 24 years old, 33 caps and 1 goal for the national team since 2019. And he plays, or he is at least on the roster of Bolivar in Bolivia, but he is loaned to a team in Russia, Baltica Kaliningrad, since 2023. And he also spent a little time in Spain. Roberto Fernandez was selected for the 2019 and 2021 Copa Americas, a substitute in each, but at halftime in the first game of the 2021 Copa America, he was subbed in and gained the starting position as the left back there. So Roberto Fernandez has started 9 of their 13 games since the start of 2023. He was subbed in for 1 and not selected for 3 others. So a definite candidate, Roberto Fernandez. However, under the new manager, he was kind of pushed forward into a left attacking midfield role. So we're going to actually move his name because currently he seems to be a left attacker, and we'll talk about him more when we get there, but I'm just going to move his name there now, and to remind us when we get there. Okay, we have 2 possible but unlikely candidates. Neither of them have tournament experience. Jesus Sagredo, just 8 caps since 2020 and not selected for the last 5 matches. Carlos Roca did play a role early in the period, started 4 of the games, but not selected for the last 4 matches. So perhaps we'll get more information on them if they are selected for the squad. Usually 2 players are selected from this position, but it could be player covering, an out-of-position player covering, which Bolivia does a lot. Let's summarize the position of left back. So here again, 4 different players in the 5 friendlies under the new manager. Sorry, under the previous manager. Only Roberto Fernandez appeared twice there in the first half of 2023. Fernandez did start the first 2 World Cup games, but it was Roca starting the next 2 in October. Under the new manager, Fernandez was selected in the first game, but then it was 3 different players after that. So 4 different players selected over the 4 games by the new manager. The many players, single appearances in the role, are often out of position players, often central midfielders. However, we do see that this position is often a right wing position. So sometimes we have wingers coming in to the role. And as we said, Fernandez became a left attacker under the new manager. So we'll meet him a bit later. So very much unsettled in this position. Let's move to the right back position and meet the candidates. We have a definite candidate in Diego Medina, and then possible candidates in Diego Berahano, Hector Cuellar. I think we mentioned him as a central defender earlier on, and Yomar Roca. Three possible candidates there, and one player off the squad, Oscar Ribera, barely even bears mention, actually. I have him because he was selected for the 2021 Copa America, but he didn't even appear on the bench for any of the games there. Perhaps COVID playing a role. So his last appearance for the national team was actually before that in March 2021. I'm going into too much detail on a player who is off the squad. Anyway, Oscar Ribera, who probably won't be seeing at this tournament. Let's focus on the players who we probably will be seeing. Diego Medina, the definite candidate, 22 years old with 9 caps for the national team since 2022. So no tournament experience there, and plays for Always Ready in Bolivia since 2021. I just love these Bolivian club names. Diego Medina first appeared for the squad in September of 2022, and since the start of 2023 has started 9 of their 13 games on the bench for 1 and not selected for 3 others. So like Fernandez, Medina, one of the most selected players on the Bolivian squad. We're not going to see a lot of definite candidates beyond this. Let's look at Diego Bejarano, and he is 32 years old with 50 caps and 3 goals since 2012. So a real veteran for the team here, but just a possible candidate at this point. He was selected for the preliminary squad for the 2015 Copa America, didn't make the final cut there, but has been selected for every tournament since 2016, 2019, and 2021, and a starter in all of them. However, recently not a starter, started only 3 of their 13 games since the beginning of 2023, as well as subbing in for 2. He was not selected for 8 matches, including the last 2, Diego Bejarano, and just a possible candidate for this squad. The second is Hector Cuellar. He's 23 years old with 5 caps for the national team since 2023. Also plays for Always Ready in Bolivia. And I think I forgot to say that Bejarano has spent almost all of his career in Bolivia as well. Not many of these players really get out of Bolivia. Hector Cuellar got his first appearance in June of 2023, started 3 of the remaining 10 games, subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 2, and he also was not selected for the last 2 matches. So Hector Cuellar, and one of his starts at least, was as a central defender there. Finally, Yomar Roca, the third possible candidate, is just 20 years old and 1 cap since 2024. So he got his first appearance on the bench in March of 2023. Didn't start any of their games, but was subbed in for the last 2 games, on the bench for the first 2 games, and not selected for 9 others, including all of the World Cup qualifying matches. So Yomar Roca, basically his claim is recent participation coming in at the end, or getting his 1 cap right at the end there. Okay, so let's look at the situation, the summary of the players. So it's more consistent on the right side than on the left, where we couldn't identify a starter. Here we have Medina playing 4 of the first 5 games, Bejarano the other of the friendlies in early 2023. In World Cup qualifying, it was basically the same. Under the previous manager for the first 4 games. Medina started 3 of them and Bejarano started 1. However, under the new manager, we have central defender Quintero starting the first 2 November World Cup qualifiers, and then Medina returned for the first of the March friendlies. So actually less stable under the new manager than under the old there. But still looks like Medina is the top candidate here. Okay, that is it for defense. Let's move on to the midfield. We have a category actually on my graphic, not on the graphic that I'm using, but I'll add it for versatile midfielders. I just want to talk about that a little bit, because effectively we could put a number of players in as versatile midfielders, because Bolivian players kind of shift around a lot for each position, as we kind of saw in defense, but it's even more pronounced in midfield. We'll see that much of the time, more than 50% of the time, the position is filled by players who are in the position just one time. We saw that with left defenders in the defense, but we're going to see a lot more here. So usually if a player just fills a position one time over the 13 games, we don't mention them by name unless there's some significance to it. So what you're going to see here is some positions we'll basically tell you who filled it 5 of the 13 times, and you may be wondering the other 8 times. Often it's just players playing it one time. And also another effect of that is we may have players playing 3 or 4 games for the team, but they're not mentioned in any position because they've played different positions every time. Okay, let's move on then. That is just a comment on versatile midfielders, but for the most part, we're going to go by the position that the player is coded as. And let's move on to defensive midfielders. No definite or likely candidates here, just a possible candidate in Pablo Vaca, and then a possible but unlikely candidate in Fernando Salceda. We have 2 seemingly off the squad, but we don't think it's worth introducing them now, but we will if they end up being selected for the squad. Let's look at Pablo Vaca, the possible candidate. He is 22 years old, just 1 cap for Bolivia since 2023, and he got his first appearance in June of 2023. He didn't start any of the remaining 10 games, just subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 3, but not selected for 6 matches, including the last 2. So Pablo Vaca, just a possible candidate here. Fernando Salcedo is a bit of one of the more experienced players on the squad. He was a starter in both the 2016 Copa America Centenario and the 2019 Copa America, and not selected for 2021, not even a consideration actually, had been off the team for quite a while after 2019 Copa America. But he has returned, he's been around, he started none of their 13 games, but he was subbed in for 1 on the bench for 3, but he was not selected for the last 6 matches. So Fernando Salcedo, just a possible but unlikely candidate here. Before summarizing the position, we're also going to look at central midfielders, and here we have more candidates. Gabriel Villamil as a definite candidate. We excuse me, we have Boris Cespedes as a likely candidate. He is one of 2, just 2. I thought there were more. Moises Villarroel is the other likely candidate, and we have 2 possible candidates in Lionel Justiniano and in Robson Mateus. We have a few players. I think we're just going to mention them by name rather than go into detail. Possible but unlikely candidate, Danny Bejarano. He is the brother of Diego Bejarano, who we met earlier. He was selected for the 2015 and the Copa America 2021, but not the 2 tournaments in between. Possible but unlikely here. Julio Herrera, also possible but unlikely. And then 3 players we have who are seemingly off the squad or else retired, or that could mean off the squad for a significant period. First one is Luciano Ursino, who plays a role in the narrative that we'll give in the summary. We have Erwin Sanchez Jr. He has not appeared since the Copa America in 2021. I think he might be playing a bit of a management role with the club, though. I'm not sure. Diego Wear also has been part of tournaments, but not appearing since September 2021. So we have three other candidates too who we're not even going to put on the list. Let's go back and look at these candidates. Gabriel Villamil is 22 years old, but has 12 caps for the national team since 2021 and plays in Bolivia, actually on loan to LDU Quito in Ecuador since 2024. Villamil has started 5 of their 13 games since the start of 2023, as well as subbing in for 5 and on the bench for 1. So just 2 matches that Villamil has not started. Not been selected for, and a definite candidate here. Boris Cespedes is a likely candidate. He is born in Switzerland and plays for Everton Sport in Switzerland there. All of his career has actually been with Swiss teams. He was selected for the 2021 Copa America. I think I forgot to give the basic information. Cespedes is 28 years old with 15 caps and 1 goal for the national team since 2020. And as I said, a starter in the 2021 Copa America, and was off the team for a while. He returned after a 17-month absence, so about a year and a half off the team, returning in March 2023, and he started 3 of their remaining 13 games, subbed in for 5 and on the bench for 1. So 4 matches he wasn't selected for. We have Cespedes as a likely candidate here. The other likely candidate is Moises Villarroel. He's 25 years old. He has 26 caps and 1 goal for Bolivia since 2018, and he plays in Bolivia. He has been with a couple of teams in Colombia and Chile as well. But he wasn't selected for the 2019 Copa America. He was selected for the 2021 edition, just a substitute in that tournament. Actually, he did start game 3 of that tournament, but subbed out at halftime. So overall, kind of a substitute. Moises Villarroel has started 4 of their 13 games since the start of 2023, subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 2, and not selected for 5 matches. But those were the first 5 matches at the beginning of 2023. So recently he's been selected consistently. The first of the possible candidate is Lionel Justiniano. He's 31 years old with 48 caps and 2 goals for Bolivia since 2017, and his whole career has been in Bolivian teams. He was a starter in both the 2019 and 2021 Copa Americas, Justiniano, but he was off the team for almost a year when he returned in October of 2023. And he started 3 of their remaining 6 games and was on the bench for 1 more. However, Justiniano was not selected for the last 2 matches. So we are seeing the beginnings of some changes under the new manager, with a lot of players not being selected for the last 2 matches. But we kind of have to wait until the warm-up games in June to see what becomes of all that. The third possible candidate here is Robson Mateus, sometimes called Robson Tome. He's 22 years old, just 1 cap since 2024 here. He plays for Always Ready in Bolivia, but he was with Cruzeiro in Brazil with their youth team. And Mateus Tome got his first appearance there in March of 2024. He started one of those remaining 2 games and was on the bench for the other. So a newcomer to the squad, and we may see him again in the warm-up games. Okay, That's it. We took a look at the two possible but unlikely Danny Bejarano and Julio Herrera. And let's go to a summary of the position, which includes both central and defensive midfielders. I don't think I talked about the position, so I will. Really, a lot of variety here, not only in the players selected, but in the formations used. So various formations make this a two-man or a three-man position. Sometimes it's two lines of midfielders, like a 4-3-2, a 4-2-3-1 formation, and sometimes just one line of midfield, like a 4-5-1 or a 3-5-2 formation. Okay, let's summarize the position. It's actually very confusing, and I've tried to kind of boil it down to a simple a situation as I can, but it's really a bit of a mess with 9 players in the 2 or 3 man position over the first 5 games in the first half of 2023. In that period, Danny Bejarano and Luciano Ursino appeared the most, though neither of them have appeared much since. And that kind of confusion continued into World Cup qualifying, with no player appearing more than twice in the 4 games under the previous manager. Under the new manager, Vaca and Justiniano were the main pairings. However, it is not Pablo Vaca, who we meet here, but Ramiro Vaca, the attacking midfielder, who we're going to meet a little bit later. In the 3rd game, it was that same pairing, Ramiro Vaca and Justiniano, with Villamil added when a 3rd player was required. We recall that they went to a 3-man central defense in the March games. However, in the last game, it was a completely different pairing. So all in all, no player appeared in more than 5 of the 13 games. So that is pretty amazing, pretty confusing as well. Let's move on to upfield. We'll take a look at left midfielders and right midfielders. They don't have many formations that use this position, but they do have a couple, like the 5-man midfield, where we could say, we could argue that there are right and left midfielders, but we'll go according to the designation that players have. So we don't have any players designated as left midfielders, and we just have one designated as a right midfielder. That's Erwin Saavedra. But he is seemingly off the squad. Let's take a quick look at the situation here. Well, he last appeared for the team in February 2022, but was an important player for them. He appeared he was selected for the last 3 Copa Americas, a starter in the 2019 and 2021 Copa America, and is still only 28 years old. So we're not quite ready to put him as a retired player yet, but as I said, has not appeared for the national team since February 2022. That's the only candidate here. Let's move on to attacking midfielders. So this position varies according to the formation that the team is using, but the variety of formations that Bolivia has used means that it's usually a winger or a left attacking midfielder. They've never used a 4-3-3 formation, so it's never a left forward. But sometimes for Bolivia, it can be both a left winger and a left attacking midfielder. Same on the right side. For example, in the 3-2-2-2-1 formation, we have both a winger and an attacking midfielder there. So that's the position. Let's look at the candidates in it. Actually, we start with Roberto Fernandez, who we introduced as a left back, but as we said, he is being used as a left attacker under the new manager, so we'll just put his name here as well. The other definite candidate is Jaime Arrascaeta. He is definite. He's coded as an attacking midfielder, but we've moved him over here. And the other one is at the possible level. It's Jaime Cuellar. So those are the only 3 candidates here, and we've looked at Roberto Fernandez. So let's look at Jaime Arrascaeta, and actually quite a versatile player. He started in various positions, even as a forward, but he fits into the narrative best here. So a definite candidate is Arrascaeta. He's 30 years old and has 14 caps and 1 goal. But that's since 2013, so he's had a bit of a problem getting into the squad. He plays in Bolivia, but was with the youth club in Brazil. And he returned. Actually, he has no tournament experience for the squad. The only time he came close was to the for the 2016 Copa America Centenario, where he was on the 40-man preliminary squad but didn't make the cut. Otherwise, not selected for any tournament. He was actually off the team for 6.5 years and returned in September 2022. In 2023, he went on to start 7 of their remaining 13 games. He subbed in for 4 and was on the bench for 1. So just 1 match that he was not selected for. So really getting his chance here is Jaime Arrascaeta, and we have him as a definite candidate. The other is Jome Cuellar. He's just 22 years old with 7 caps for the national team since 2021. He's born in Spain and is actually with Barcelona's B team in Spain. With them, he's actually on the roster of Lugo, a much smaller club in Spain since 2021. But as I said, loaned to Barcelona B. He also played for Spal in Italy. And Cuellar was actually selected for the 2021 Copa America, despite his age. So I guess he would have been 19 when he was selected there. He ended up getting a red card in that tournament, actually. And Cuellar has started only 1 of their 13 games since the start of 2023, but he was subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 3. So 6 matches that he was not selected for. However, he was used as a forward in one of the March games. So that is a notch in his favor. That's the left attackers. Let's look at the position. Well, we could count the position in use 6 times over the first 5 games. As we said, sometimes doubling up with a left winger and a left attacking midfielder. And that was 6 different players, each appearing 1 time each. Over the first 4 World Cup games, Arrascaeta emerged as playing slightly more than most. I think he started 2 or 3 of those games. Under the new manager, though, it's Fernandez, the left defender, kind of switching positions and playing in 3 of the 4 games there. I think 2 of those were as a left attacking midfielder and 1 as a winger. So Fernandez looks in favor right now, but as we said, Arrascaeta also plays in other positions, so we may see him elsewhere on the field. Moving to right attackers, we just have a likely candidate here, no definite candidate, and that is Miguel Terceros, also known as Miguelito. And we have a possible candidate in Cesar Menacho. Okay, let's look at these candidates. So Miguelito, or Miguel Terceros, is 20 years old with 8 caps for the national team since 2022. No goals for him. He plays for Santos in Brazil, and he was with their youth club as well. Miguelito first appeared in September 2022, and over the since the beginning of 2023 has started 5 of their 13 games, as well as subbing in for 2 and on the bench for 4. So just 2 matches that Miguelito was not selected for. He's actually coded as an attacking midfielder, but has most of his starts over here on the right. The other possible candidate is coded as a right winger. It's Cesar Menacho, and he has no caps for the national team. He's 25 years old and plays in Bolivia for Blooming, another of their wonderful names. Menacho did appear actually in 2020 on the bench, but actually got his first cap. No, it wasn't a cap. Guess reappeared, I'll say, in March of 2024. Didn't start either of those two games, but he was on the bench for both Cesar Manacho. So making a current bid, we'll have to see if he's selected in June as well. Okay, let's summarize this position of right attacker. And this side seems a bit more stable, actually. We saw the right back Medina starting even when it's a right winger role. And it is usually Medina when it's a right wing role, and Miguelito when it's a right attacking midfield role. From the start of World Cup qualifying, though, the role actually didn't exist. If you think of the 5-3-2 formation, um, not a specific kind of right attacker role. And in the 5-3-2, it would have been central midfielders playing in the role. And as if aiming to make this more confusing, it was the forward Henry Vaca, another Vaca, was the last of these, playing as a right midfielder and then becoming the first in this position under the manager, playing as a right attacking midfielder. So we're going to meet Henry Vaca when we get to the forward section. However, he didn't last long in that position, and then it went back to single appearances in the position, as we see so often for Bolivia. The last appearance was by attacking midfielder Ramiro Vaca, again, one of the three Vacas on the team. Okay, so confusing us not only with position, with the players' selection and formation, but also with players' names there. Can't get much more confusing than that. Let's move on to central attackers, and we have a few players who we've moved around who are coded as attacking midfielders. So Jaime Arrascaeta is actually coded, but we moved him to the left attacking position. Here is actually where we meet Ramiro Vaca, whose name has come up already. He is a likely candidate here. And we have Jason Chura as the first of two possible candidates, and Rafinha, the second of two possible candidates. We also have a possible but unlikely candidate in Lucas Chavez. Let's go back and look at Ramiro Vaca. So as we see, actually, in this period, he has had most of his starts as a defensive / central midfielder. But he is coded as an attacking midfielder, and he is 24 years old, Ramiro Vaca, with 27 caps and 2 goals since 2017. And he is with Bolivar in Bolivia since 2023, but was with Beerschot in Belgium for a little while there. And Vaca was selected for the 2019 and the 2021 Copa America. He was a sub in the first one, began on the bench in 2021, but gained a starting position from games 2 onwards. And over the recent period, he has started 5 games, including the last 4 of their 13 games since the start of 2023. He was subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 2, and not selected for 4 matches. So it seems to be favored under the new manager, Ramiro Vaca. However, that's in a more defensive role. Next, we have Jason Chura, the first of our 2 possible candidates. Chura is 22 years old with 9 caps for the national team and no goals since 2020. And he plays for the Strongest in Bolivia. Since 2020. He's always been with that team, even in his youth clubs. And Chura was selected for the Copa America 2021, also actually on the bench for game 1 and gained a starting position after that. But however, Chura has started only 1 of their 13 matches since the start of 2023. He was, though, subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 4, but not selected for 5, including the last 2 matches. So there's that theme again. So we'll see if Jason Chura is selected for the warm-up games. Rafinha is 33 years old, but no caps for Bolivia. As his name suggests, he's born in Brazil, but actually has been playing for Blooming in Bolivia since 2019. And he got his first appearance for Bolivia in March 2024 and didn't start any of the or either of the two remaining games, but he was on the bench for both. So again, we'll have to see the warm-up games if Rafinha comes into play. Lucas Chavez, our possible but unlikely candidate, is just 21 years old, but he hasn't been selected for the last 4 matches, so never under the new manager, Lucas Chavez, and we'll talk more about him if he comes into the squad in part 2. All right, let us move on from the midfield to the forward line. We have no players coded as secondary strikers, so we go straight to forwards. And I'll just talk about the position. It is actually a 2-man position in about 2/3 of the games, or at least it was under the previous manager. Under the new manager, though, it's always a 1-man position. Let's look at the candidates. We have no definite candidates, but we begin with Carmelo Algaranaz. He's the first of 2 likely candidates here. Rodrigo Romalo is the other one. And then we have 2 possible candidates. We've already met Henry Vaca playing as a right attacker. Sometimes even as a right midfielder. And we have another possible candidate in Yair Reynoso. Then we have 2 possible but unlikely candidates in Victor Abrego and Bruno Miranda. And then very significantly, seemingly retired is Marcelo Moreno Martin, so announced his retirement at the end of 2023. He does figure largely in this summary because he was around for all of 2023. We have a couple of players who are also off the squad. One is Gilbert Alvarez. He was a starter in the 2021 Copa America, but hasn't appeared since September of 2021. The other is John Carlos Arce, I should say, and he was also part of the 2021 Copa America and has not appeared since February 2022. So a veteran there for the team, retiring 88 caps for Arce. Let's go back and meet the candidates. Carmelo Algaranez, I got it out, is 28 years old. 21 caps for Bolivia since 2016, but only 2 goals, so less than 10% production rate there. That's low for a forward. He plays for Bolivar in Bolivia and has had his whole career with Bolivian clubs. He was selected way back for the 2016 Copa America Centenario, but never since then. So really his biggest claim to fame since that tournament was getting 2 of their 4 red cards in World Cup 2022 qualifying. However, Algaranez has come back into the picture a bit, starting 4 of their 13 games since the beginning of 2023. He subbed in for 5 and was on the bench for 1. So just 3 matches that he wasn't selected for. So Algaranez as a likely candidate for this tournament. Rodrigo Romalo is the other likely candidate. He is 33 years old with 40 caps and 7 goals for Bolivia since 2013. And he is with the strongest in Bolivia, his 4th stint with them, actually. He has played outside of Bolivia a little bit, but only briefly in Brazil in 2016 and 17. Romalo was on the preliminary squad for the 2015 Copa America, not selected for that, and also injured for the 2019 Copa America, but he was selected for the 2016 and 29 2016 and 2021 editions. Never a starter in those, though. He did start individual games, but was never kind of a starting player. He returned after an 11-month absence, Rodrigo Romalo. He returned in October 2023 and started 3 of their remaining 6 games, as well as subbing in for 3 others. So Romalo's recent participation is promising, and we have him as a likely candidate. Next, we have Henry Vaca. And his goal ratio is even worse than Algaranes. Over his 20 games, he only has 1 goal for the 26-year-old. He's been with Bolivia since 2018, Henry Vaca, and is currently in Bolivia with Bolivar, but he did have a stint in Israel and also in Chile and Brazil. Has played outside of the country. Henry Vaca was selected not for the 2019 Copa America, just on the preliminary squad there, but was on the squad in the 2021 edition, just as a substitute though. And he returned after an 11-month absence, just like Rodrigo Romalo. He returned in October of 2023 to start 2 of their remaining 6 games. He was subbed in for 1 and not selected for 3 others. So Henry Vaca, not selected for the last 3 matches, I should emphasize. So we just have him as a possible candidate, not really favored by the new manager, it seems. Finally, we have as a possible candidate, Yair Reynoso. And he is 39 years old with just 1 cap since 2023, has played in Bolivia the whole time and got his first appearance in November 2023 and didn't start any of the remaining 4 games, but was subbed in for all 4 matches. So late in his career here, Reynoso getting in right at the end here. Be interesting to see if he makes it. We have 2 possible but unlikely candidates. The first is Victor Abrego. Been on the team since 2020, but not selected for the Copa America in 2021, and not selected for the last 4 matches. So not selected under the new manager. We will see that he had a role under the previous manager. The other possible but unlikely candidate is Bruno Miranda. And he's been on the team since 2016, but has never made it to a tournament. Over the past since the beginning of 2021. He hadn't started any games, but he was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 2, and not selected for 3 others, including the last 2 matches. So possible but unlikely. Actually, his recent participation is more like that of a possible candidate. It's just that he kind of perennially is on the outside of the outskirts of the team, I should say, having been with the team since 2016, but only 16 caps. So Bruno Miranda, a possible but unlikely candidate here. And I will give a bit of detail on Marcelo Martins. He is known as Marcelo Martins when representing Bolivia, and Marcelo Moreno at the club level. Although he did have Moreno on the back of his shirt in the 2011 Copa America, so I don't think that's consistent. The 2011 Copa America was his first one for the squad, and he's been an important player for them ever since. He was the captain in 2021, but only appeared in 1 game because of a COVID test. 108 caps and 31 goals for Martins. He's 36 years old now. And a big loss for them, announcing his retirement there at the end of 2023. So he will come up in the summary, but especially his goal ratio. We saw a couple of the forwards with pretty miserable goal ratios. None of them actually we introduced have more than 2, except for Rodrigo Romalo with 7 goals and 40 caps. Marcelo, 31 goals in 108 caps is about 30% ratio, which is good for any forward. Anyway, let's go to the summary of the position. As I said, two forwards often used under the old manager, the previous manager. So in the 5 friendlies that they played in the first half of 2023, we had 8 positions available. But no player played more than 3. Even Moreno, or even Martins, only played 3 of those 5 games. Arrascaeta, 2 of them, and then we have 3 other players in single appearances, as we so often see for Bolivia. In World Cup qualifying, it was a little bit better. Moreno started all 4 of the World Cup qualifiers under the previous manager. He was flanked by Abrego twice and by Ramalho once. So in 3 of those 4 games, it was a 2-forward position. Under the new manager, though, it's just a single position, and Moreno was kept on as the sole forward in both of the World Cup qualifiers. However, he retired after that, so their main player was gone. We also have Abrego, who looked promising under the previous manager, disappearing under the new manager. So in the last 2 games, it was Algaranes used once, and then kind of out of the blue, left attacker Jome Cuellar used as the central forward in the final game. So holy cow, they just keep us guessing, don't they? That brings us to the end of a fairly difficult run through the players, and we'll move on to some closing thoughts before the unenviable task of trying to pick out some starters among all of that. But let's finish with some closing thoughts here. So especially among the midfielders, but in other positions too, we see players shifting position a lot, often just appearing once in a given position, even though they may appear in 3 or 4 games overall. So while this versatility is admirable in a way, it's obviously not helping the team, judging by the performance results of Bolivia. And really, it actually seems quite disruptive as far as team building goes. We do see in some smaller European teams in Europe and Africa, they do well because despite having a small pool of players to choose from, these small teams use the same players in same positions consistently. So their strength is working well together as a team, with everyone knowing each other well. Bolivia's system of constant change, though, seems to have no benefit at all. And it's really surprising to see that for many positions, no player appears enough to even be considered as a starter. So one would think actually that the new manager's mandate would be to bring some stability to that. But no, it seems like the constant shuffling has continued under the new manager, though we will have to wait to at least the warm-up games to assess whether that continues. So that does bring us into the review of starters. I'm going to turn off to just get set up for that. Here we are back again at the top of the list to try to nominate starters. So we'll begin with the manager. Well, we don't expect that he'll be changed between now and the Cup, so we'll nominate him as a starter, as it were. For goalkeepers, one of the few positions we can be confident about nominating a starter. Guillermo Vizcarra looks like he will be the starter, and we put our full confidence of the color green behind it, highlighting his name in green on the YouTube graphics there. Moving on to central defense, we're fairly confident that the captain, Luis Higuain, will start, even though he has only started 6 of the 12 games. He kind of came in towards the end, starting a lot. So Luis Higuain. It's often a 3-man defense. We're looking to the June games, the warm-up games, to see if they stick with that. But it could be 3 players, but we're not confident enough in any of the other players to nominate a starter. Likely Jose Sagrado, but just not sure enough. Over on left back, absolutely uncertain who the starter will be. Roberto Fernandez has now been moved into more of a left attacking role by the manager, and even at that, we probably wouldn't have seen him as a starter. I would say, though, we would nominate Roberto Fernandez as a starter, but we're going to highlight him when we get to the left attacking position there. But we don't think he would be the starting left back. We're really not sure what they will use here, because they use so many players in the position. On the right back, we can be a bit more confident. Diego Medina. Not confident enough to highlight him in green, but in blue as a likely starter, whether it's a defender or a winger role. Diego Medina, a likely starter. Let's move on to the midfield. And again, in the 2 or 3 positions of the defensive/central midfielder, we can't find any players who we really see as a starter. We have Villamil appearing the most, but that was only in 5 of the 13 games. So otherwise, we have a lot of players kind of coming and going, as well as a lot of players starting just one game. So I don't even think we'll highlight Villamil in blue there. We'll just have to wait and see. Maybe after the June games, we can make a better guess. All the way up to the left attacking position. And here we will highlight Roberto Fernandez as a starter. Not necessarily in this position as a left attacker, but somewhere on the field. And that's all we can do here. We don't see anyone else really as a starter, although Jaime Arrascaeta is probably a likely starter somewhere on the field. Just hasn't started quite enough games for us to nominate him there. On the right attacking, it's been much more kind of confusing as to who is going to be there. So Miguelito, probably the most likely candidate, but not enough for us to highlight him. He only started 5 of the 13 games. So undefinable starter here. Central attack, they don't really use the position enough. And Ramiro Vaca doesn't start enough for us to nominate him. He did start 4 of the last 5, though. So among the players up here, one of the more likely, Ramiro Vaca. And we go to the forward line, and well, we would definitely be highlighting Marcelo Martins had he not retired from the squad in November, but he was one of the definite starters. In his absence, though, we have no idea who the starter would be. So very few players on the squad that we can define as starters. As I say, maybe after the June games we'll get a clearer idea. Let's finish then with a review of injuries, and Bolivia is quite lucky here. No injury concerns, so hopefully it will remain for them that way up to the Cup. But as of this time, no injury concerns, and hopefully, as I say, they won't get any in the warm-up games. All right, that brings us to the end. We just finished by previewing part 2, so when the final squads are released and we know who is on the list, we're going to come back and look at the list that we've created here, and we'll particularly point out any notable non-selections that would probably be likely or definite candidates that weren't selected, or surprise inclusions, any new candidates or players brought in kind of from the cold. We do actually expect a couple of those for Bolivia. We'll also give an update on injuries. Hopefully we'll be saying the same thing as we did here, that there are no injuries for them. All right, that brings us to the end of part 1, and we hope you come back and join us for part 2 of our look at Bolivia. We would like to thank Paul Udin and Pixabay for the wonderful background music accompanying this mediacast. The piece is called Victory Epic Music.